This is part 2 of 2 of the Louisiana Special School District's Board of Directors meeting, August 9th, 2022. The link to part 1 is in the video's description.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Derry. I'm the General Counsel for the Special School District. I just have a couple legal updates I wanted to provide quickly and be available to answer any questions if necessary. So let me do a little background here. I don't have any action items for you guys today, but I want to spend some time on background because this is a fairly new board. So this board was formed officially on July 1, 2021. On July 2nd, 2021, we received our first lawsuit in our name. Lawsuits filed prior to that would be handled by LDE. Lawsuits filed on July 1st, 2021 and subsequently are for us to handle and answer. So since the formation of this board and SSD being spun off of LDOE, we have received a single lawsuit that was received on July 2nd, 2021. As of this week, we have a proposed settlement to that I will discuss with you all in just a second, but again, just for informational purposes, to provide some information on that. But I also wanted to cover just how that legal process works. So when a lawsuit is filed against SSD as a state agency, an independent state agency now, they are submitted to the Office of Risk Management through the Department of Justice. If that case involves potential judgment, money judgment against the state of Louisiana, then the Office of Risk Management will pick that litigation up and handle it through the Department of Justice. Typically, that means the hiring of private attorneys. The AG doesn't necessarily handle all that litigation directly through Attorney General employees. So currently we have, there are 4 lawsuits pending that deal with business arising here at SSD. Again, the one that I just discussed a moment ago, which was filed on July 2nd, 2021, and 3 suits that were filed prior to June 30th, 2021. Those 3 prior cases will be handled by LDE. That was part of the litigation that formed SSD, assigned that litigation to the Department of Education, and we'll be handling just that case that was filed afterward. And just to get into the specifics of that case real quickly, if we're going to get into general specifics about that case, if there are specific questions, I would urge that we move into executive session if anybody wants to get into details here, because this was an employment matter. So the caption of the case is Dr. Erica Thomas versus State of Louisiana through the Board of Directors of the Special School District and Ernest Garrett individually and in his official capacity as Superintendent of Louisiana Special School District. This case was filed in the U.S. Middle District of Louisiana Federal Court here in Baton Rouge. And there's docket number, this is a civil docket number 3:1-CV-00458-JDW-EWD. I'm sorry, I transposed those letters. Let me redo the whole docket number here. So it's docket number 3:1-CV-00458-JWD-EWD. Again, this suit was filed by a former employee, raised claims of hostile work environment and discrimination, along with some retaliation claims relevant to some leave that was taken. The case has proceeded to discovery, and the attorneys handling this matter on behalf of the Office of Risk Management have negotiated a settlement of this claim. They are requesting no contribution from SSD, again, because although the case was filed on July 2nd, 2021, all of the actions that led up to the filing of this lawsuit, all of the allegations were based on facts that took place before June 30th of 2021. So because the claims arose from the period of time where the Department of Ed was overseeing the SSD, we are not going to contribute to the monetary settlement of this case. So I recommended, and Superintendent Grenier, Acting Superintendent Grenier, has accepted the settlement offer. We're going to communicate to ORM that we have no reservations about it. Again, because there's no financial contribution from the SSD, and no real change in position from SSD here other than the waiver of claims by this former employee. It is a beneficial settlement to the district, and so it will be recommended, and again, Acting Superintendent Grenier will inform Risk Management, or I'll inform her going to approve. We have no reservations about risk management moving forward with that settlement. At this time, if y'all have any questions about the process of how these cases come to be, what the general procedures followed here, or how we communicate with the attorney from risk management, I'll take those. If you'd like to discuss in further this litigation, I'd advise an executive session. But if there are any questions from the board, I'll entertain those.
I just want to, just a quick clarification. I think you were pretty clear on this, but essentially what I hear you saying is that for all intents and purposes, all 4 cases occurred prior to June 30th of last year, and then therefore we are not going to be held responsible as for that. Are there any other pending legislation since July 1 of last year that you are aware of?
We don't have any other litigation arising after July 1, 2021. Only this single lawsuit, again, which the settlement's proposed for. We do have a handful of, I believe the number is 4 or 5 right now. We've got some duplicates, EEOC complaints. While those are not litigation, those are a prerequisite to filing litigation. So very often EEOC complaints, depending on how it can be a dead end for a litigant if EEOC finds against them. It may lead them to a rank 2 sue the organization. So we don't have any. The case I just discussed is the only pending matter we have in state or federal court, but we do have a few matters with the EEOC in a complaint posture that could possibly proceed to litigation.
I don't know that we necessarily have to do it today, but I think it would be important for the board to know about those EEOC complaints, just so we are not caught off guard in terms of knowing what complaints are being held against the district. If not today, maybe by the November meeting, or just so we are aware of what complaints are out there.
Dr. Bad, we can address that first through the personnel committee if you would like to, between this meeting and the next one. If you'd like some information on that, we can provide it. Additionally, at the next meeting, I can bring information relative to those complaints, both the currently pending ones and our recent history with them. And we can set for an executive session so we can use each of those arises from employment matters. So I would encourage that we set an executive session for that next meeting if you'd like to do it in a full meeting.
I would be satisfied with the employment subcommittee. I just think we just need to know what's out there so we're not caught off guard. So if we could make it a meeting with you just in the next month or so as part of the employment subcommittee to know what are these issues so that we know what may be coming down the road.
Absolutely. I will confer with Ms. Patterson in HR and we'll pull something together for you and set something up with the personnel committee in the next few weeks. Any other questions regarding litigation? All right, one other matter I wanted to address. This isn't quite a legal matter at this point, but I did want to put it on everybody's radar as there may be some releases floating around in the next few days. Over the last few weeks, we have been back and forth with a TV production that will be filming on campus over the next couple of weeks. Beginning tomorrow, there will be a television production crew which will be present on campus between the Physical Education Center, some areas of the School for the Deaf, common areas, and also the athletic facilities around the football field. They will be here for just a day tomorrow, and then they will return on Thursday the 18th. They will not be filming any groups of students. They may have contact with individual students, and if that is the case, releases will be mailed out to minor students' parents, and they will be notified well in advance of any attempt to contact their student. A couple of adult students have already signed releases to participate in this filming. Again, we've got general releases for all students that in their initial application, I say we have general releases. We have requested general releases from all students. In their initial application packets and registration materials, parents sign a general release. That simply allows us to operate as a school system, take pictures of students at events and put them on our website, And so parents sign a general release for incidental appearances of students, again, on our website, as stock photos in publications we might put out. That does not cover something like this. So we have in place a location agreement for the production crew to be here. We've got materials use agreements in place for any materials they plan to use here. And there will be, with regard to any individuals appearing on film, releases prior to them being filmed. Yes, Ms. Morris?
What's the nature of the film?
The filming is a reality show in which they select a single subject and follow them around, and I guess I would call it, in essence, a makeover show, where they find someone, they have a subject of the episode, they meet them, they accompany them on a day in their life. They then come in and make over the individual, make over some facilities, typically an individual's house or their workplace, and then they reveal the new made over individual and the facilities. One of the staff members from Louisiana School for the Deaf was selected for this television show. The majority of the shooting will focus around his personal life outside of LSD. However, they also wanted to get some of his professional work. So the individual is involved in extracurriculars, the staff member, and so the bulk of the filming should be built around extracurricular activities. There won't be any instructional periods of the day appearing on film.
Right. Will the school be specifically identified in the film?
The school will be identified, yes.
Right now, it's being filmed, so we can't really go deep into the real details. Because of legality purposes, we cannot go into deep details of the show right now. Again, it will be released later on who the individual is and when it's going to air. But right now, all we can tell you is filming will happen starting tomorrow and then on the weekends. Other than that, we cannot go into further detail because it would be breaching the contract that we have with the production.
And I just have a comment. From what I understand, it's supposed to shed very positive light on the very small portion that the School for the Deaf and what they offer. And then looking at our enrollment issues, it's almost supposed to help our enrollment issues as well as a bright place in the a bright spot in the state of Louisiana where specific education is given, but it's very limited, focused on just the extracurricular in this facility, not the academics.
Is there any compensation in
Yes, there will be compensation to the person who is featured in the episode, as well as kind of a trade. If you've ever seen an episode, they oftentimes will make over somebody's home or make over a part of a school or something like that. So that will be what is the compensation aspect of it. So we are not allowed to donate our land, more or less, just, for free filming purposes. And so that is the legal trade agreement in place, that we will be getting something out of it, as well as the person who is mostly going to be filmed. Aside from that, I just would like to ask everybody to please keep this not online. Please do not post this on social media. If people from find out, we could get in trouble. They could even go as far as pulling the episode because they do not like this stuff publicized beforehand. And so I would just like to please ask y'all to try to keep it in this room as much as possible. I do understand that it's very exciting. We are all very excited, and we want to keep this opportunity alive and show, potentially anybody else who would want to come on to our campus that we abide by their rules and we abide by their procedures. So again, I'm very excited, we all are, but please try to keep this offline specifically because we do not want any legal issues and we do not want it getting leaked, so to speak. So, thank you.
to piggyback on that comment, the purpose of presenting this today is to find that balance between the production's desire for secrecy and I guess the format of reality television, which is somewhat based on surprise, and obviously the need to communicate to a very big campus here with a lot of different groups that there will be some outside visitors on campus over the next few weeks. Again, just for logistics reasons, tomorrow we're expecting about 10 to 15 individuals, a small filming crew. Next week, at the end of the week, between the 18th and 21st, we're expecting a little larger crew, somewhere nearer to 35 or 40 people. They will have access to, again, the PE Center, the Deaf High Middle, and the athletic facilities behind there. They will set up in that parking lot adjacent to LSD on the backside near to the football field. Are there any questions about the production or again, the logistics will be working kind of on the ground. I've learned in dealing with the TV production crew. So we know when they'll be here in the general places they'll be restrained to. Again, the consideration here, as Lynn mentioned it, is that in addition to the publicity LSD will receive by being featured on the show, they will also be conducting renovations of some of our facilities in one or multiple of those spots I just identified, the school, the PEC, and the athletic football field and locker room field house. Correct.
There's been security checks and et cetera that Netflix has done for the people who are coming on campus?
Correct. They will be a fully self-contained production crew. They've gone through a full employment process and have background checks. Additionally, they will be doing COVID testing of any adults who participate in the production, daily COVID tests. So any of the individuals appearing on our campus or any members of our community who participate in the production will be required to have an up-to-date COVID test. They will be providing their own interpreters through Deaf Focus, along with their own security who will be here coordinating with our security. So the expectation is that, one, to answer your question, yes, we're confident that these individuals are vetted by the production company, and additionally there'll be some health checks to go with that.
Thank you.
And just as a final piece, we're expecting a lot of this filming to take place outside of regular business hours or the school day. They'll show up on Thursday and stay through Sunday. Our resident students will leave on Friday afternoon, other than those who are involved in the athletic events that are occurring over the 2 weekends. So we will have some students on campus over the weekend, but the focus of the production, at least our understanding, is going to be on those extracurricular portions of the day and athletic portions of the day, as opposed to the classroom experience. All right, that concludes my comments. I'll turn it back over. Question?
Okay, I just want to make a general reminder about the public comment policy. The public is provided an opportunity to speak on agenda items for a time period that we determined as 3 minutes. We have the public cards over by Leslie. So if you want to fill out a public comment card, you can, and just give your card back to Leslie, and then Leslie will give them to me. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Action items, the policy task force. Okay, so the policies that we have reviewed as this board are 10 years old, most of them done in 2013. So what we need to do at this time is we need to review all the policies and procedures for the 2 schools and for the district to make sure that they comply with all the state laws and regulations. So at this time, what we really need is one of our board members to oversee this policy and procedure endeavor. I just did this at my facility, and it was a huge undertaking, but it was an amazing undertaking because it brought everybody into 2022. So do we have any member on our board who would be interested in serving as the president of the policy task force? Anybody? Okay. Ms. Stallion? All right, so I guess we need to vote on that? We know? Okay, great. And y'all really forgive me, this is the first time that I've ever been on a board, so I am learning all the rules and regulations, and I want to make sure that I do it right and very transparent, so just forgive me if I have to stop and ask questions. All right, we're going to move on to the consideration of the Personnel Committee Superintendent search and selection process.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that the Personnel Subcommittee develop the search process and guidelines for the superintendent to be available for public comment within 30 days so that we may proceed with the advertisement and selection process.
Okay, do we have a second motion to approve that? Dr. Bell, could you repeat that for her?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the Personnel Subcommittee develop the search criteria and process for the next superintendent, for that process to be completed within 30 days and available for public comment, so that we can begin the search and selection process after that point.
Okay, so I would need somebody to second.
I can second the motion, but I can also share with members that I'm prepared to provide some insight into that process as well.
Okay, thank you, Ronnie. Okay, so we have a second. Is there any opposition to what the board has suggested for the consideration of the superintendent search and selection process? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on.
So if it's okay, I'd like to maybe share a little insight on the process.
Sure.
So I think in the board members' packet, there's a sheet that's labeled superintendent search and hiring process. I'm not sure if the public has that document or not, but I give members a chance to find it in their folder. But just to take you through it briefly, if we could, and also add to that, a couple of years ago, I think most of you know that Bessie voted on the new state superintendent of education. Kate Bromley was voted state superintendent of education by the Bessie board, and I was on that selection committee. So I have some experience in this space, and some of my comments here are derived from that experience. So to get us started, following Dr. Bell's motion, just a few things that we can take into consideration to give folks that aren't familiar, with this process on this side. So first of all, I think it was already mentioned that we did take a look at the current document that's in place for the superintendent job description. And after reviewing that document, we recognize that it does need to be updated. And so particularly with regard to terms of employment, reporting relationship, and the application process. A lot of that's around the establishment of this board as a governing body as opposed to LDOE. So we'll be reviewing that. We'll be looking for public comment on that job description. And then as far as the search process itself, we're required by law, Louisiana RS 1754, with regard to how we post the job. It's got to be posted for a minimum of 30 days before the action is taken. There's a minimum number of publications that have to be involved. With regard to the application review, Personnel Committee will be working to define the process for selecting candidates and develop interview questions. I fully expect that we'll be looking for public input on the interview questions. And then prior to the closure date, we'd like to get input from board members who might want to submit names for applicants. So for example, if someone on the board knows somebody that might be interested, but that individual has not filed a formal application, we'd like to get that input from the board member and potentially approach that individual directly and get them to submit an application. Once we've gone through the review process, the Personnel Committee will propose interviews for 3 to 5 finalists, and that would be in a public meeting, where public meeting law would apply. And in regard to interviews and selection, we want everyone to understand that when we get to that point, we've got a finalist. It still has to be approved by the Senate. They won't be in session until the spring, so we wouldn't get the final appointment until then. So from the day that individual is selected, they would serve in an interim role until the Senate approval. So Dr. Bell has already brought us a motion to grant authority for the Personnel Committee to find and hire, to begin the process. I'd like to submit a motion to the board to grant authority to the Personnel Committee to find and hire an appropriate search firm. This will help us with an efficient and professional search process so that we can, again, do this sufficiently as possible, find the right person in a timely manner. And in my experience, again, investing with that search process, we get our third party, it was very, very effective and helped to lead us through all that. So I would put that motion on the floor and ask for a second.
Can you just go ahead and restate the motion? I think it was pretty clear, but just the motion part.
Sure. I would motion to grant authority to the Personnel Committee to find and hire an appropriate search firm for an official professional search.
I'll second.
I have a question. I thought there was already a subcommittee that was for the personnel focus. Is that what he's talking about in particular?
Yes, the Personnel Committee, yes.
Is the subcommittee? It's another committee?
No, this is just the same committee that we have for personnel to,
Okay.
So the subcommittee will put together the processes and the procedures and get the board approval on how that's to be done. What Mr. Morris is moving here is that we then hand that over to an outside entity who would run the search process on our behalf.
Thank you for clarifying.
okay, so any opposition? So the motion passes.
Madam Chair, I would also add that I've shared with board members and other members of the Personnel Committee the rubric that the State Department of Education used for the selection process with the State Superintendent of Education. So I thought that'd be a good reference document in the process.
Okay, thank you. This time we're going to move on to consideration of performance for the acting superintendent.
Again, I would like to make another motion that the employment subcommittee develop a rubric that includes goals and outcome measures by which to measure the performance of the superintendent, that would be done within 30 days and handed over to the rest of the board for final determination for the process of how evaluation of the superintendent will proceed going forward.
Okay. Dr. Bell first, Ronnie second. Okay, is there any opposition to that?
Can I? Will there be a job description for the superintendent that we can review?
Yes, there will be a job description for the superintendent. I'm gonna let Ronnie talk to that. It's gonna be similar to what the Bessie board used when they,
Well, let's be
Or the
clear.
rubric.
Yeah, let's be clear between the rubric and the job description, right? The question I heard was specific to the job description. So I spoke to that a little bit briefly. There is an existing document for a job description. But we recognize that there are several updates that are appropriate. And then, with regard to the permanent superintendent search, I think the personnel committee would welcome comments from stakeholders with regard to any other suggestions for change to the job description. But right now, I would say that we'll be working off this original document, recognizing the obvious changes that the new governing body and the direct report to the new superintendent is this board.
And just to, this is separate from this particular motion, but on the previous motion where we discussed the development of the search for the superintendent, that would include the job description, and this board would certainly take part in approving that job description prior to it going forward. So that's related to the previous motion, but maybe I didn't like to mention it, that this entire board will have input on that job description.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, once we get it together, we will make sure that the board,
once we get it together, we will make sure that everybody on the board has it and that we all agree on the job description and the search process moving forward. Okay, so,
So just to restate, the current motion is simply that the personnel subcommittee will develop a rubric, including goals and timelines for evaluation of the superintendent, and that evaluation process will be handed over to the board within the next 30 days for their final approval. That's the motion on the floor.
okay, is there anybody that wants to second that motion? Ronnie did, and did we have any opposition? No?
Public comment?
Yeah. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna move on to the public comment. I have several cards, and I wanna remind you that you have a 3-minute time limit, and I'm gonna stick to that today because we are gonna be enjoying lunch in the cafeteria with many of the students that attend school here. And also, your public comment has to be related to an agenda item. So I'm gonna go with what I have.
So, I'm sorry, did that motion pass, or are these
It
comments on
did.
that motion? Okay, so that motion is passed.
Actually, I think before the motion can pass, you have to get public comment.
Okay, so then the public comment has to be specific to this motion.
That's correct.
So it would be the acting superintendent, correct?
Actually, the motion on the floor is the rubric.
Okay.
So, so unless there is specific comment on this motion, that wouldn't, unless somebody has a comment or question on this particular motion, then we would go ahead and vote on this motion.
Yeah, so is there any, bottom line, is there any public comment on the motion on the floor, which is to develop a rubric for evaluation of the acting superintendent?
Okay, so we don't see that any of these apply to, okay, yeah, maybe the one talking about the policy task force,
We've already passed that one.
okay. Right, they're worded vaguely, so we're just trying to make sure. Okay.
So if procedurally, yeah, so procedurally, if we missed an opportunity for public comment prior to approving a motion, I think it's appropriate that we allow opportunity for that public comment.
But I think we need to finish this particular motion first. If there's no opposition to this motion, then we pass the motion. If we want to go back to the previous motion, we can entertain that.
Okay, so let's, we're on consideration of the personnel committee superintendent, right, search and selection process. Okay, so we seconded, you did, right? And we didn't have any opposition, so it passed. So public comment on that would be Jenny Chalice, personnel committee concern.
Good morning, board. My concern is on the committee, you have 3 hearing board members who don't know anything about the needs of deaf children. We need to have someone on the personnel committee who is deaf and familiar with deaf education. Not involving them, I'm concerned about the 3 hearing individuals. I'm not comfortable with it, and I think that needs to be there, an individual representing the deaf school. Thank you.
Hey, Nigel. Okay, we're gonna go on then to the consideration of performance for the acting superintendent. And I do believe that Dr. Bell spoke to that just a minute ago.
Did we miss an opportunity for public comment on that one, or we
We're just going back.
so the item is closed out?
Right.
So unless we missed an opportunity for public comment, then we can move forward to the next item. I just want to make sure
Okay.
that if we didn't miss any opportunities for public comment.
All right, I do have 3 of those that relate to the superintendent. It's April Grimion.
Mine's for the acting, performing, so that's on the next agenda. Mine's agenda 9. Give me a second.
So related to item 9, which is the performance of the acting.
So we've already voted on that, so you're welcome to come make a public comment.
I'm sorry. Can we have a point of order because you can't take a vote before public comment? A point of order being allowed. So you have to go back to the motion.
Okay, now we're taking public comment. We have not voted.
So your motion is for the personnel committee to approve the goals and timelines for the acting superintendent within the next 30 days and the annual service report.
Can you please repeat?
Yes.
Would you like me to repeat that?
So I have the motion is by Dr. Bell for the personnel committee to develop a rubric that includes goals and timelines for the acting superintendent within the next 30 days and hand that over to the board. And that's
seconded by Ryan Moore.
For the evaluation of the superintendent's performance.
Yes.
That's the motion that's on the floor.
Right.
And we did open it up for public comment, but this is your opportunity to comment if you would like to.
So April, this is on agenda item number 9. Yes.
Hi, yes, I'm April Bernion. I have a student at LSBI, and I have a lot of concerns with the acting superintendent's performance. It seemed I attended the July 25th meeting, and it seemed both school director and principal mentioned that they had not had really any direct communication with Ms. Grainer as to what the schools needed and their concerns. So I'm still back at that again. I understand there's monthly meetings, and that started on May 19th, but what has been discussed specifically with the individual school leaders and to what their school needs? I feel there's a huge lack of communication. Thank you.
So I just want to comment on that is what the purpose of this motion is to develop that process for the evaluation of the superintendent. If you have specific feedback for the board or the committee as to how that evaluation can best be conducted, that would be useful information. We certainly want stakeholder information or input into that process, but that's what this motion is for, is to develop that evaluation protocol within the next 30 days.
And can I make an amendment to have a deaf person on the personnel committee?
Well, that would be a separate motion. We got to finish this motion, but you can make that as a separate motion.
Okay.
Coming to the comment. Are there agendas when we meet with are those posted on the website? Maybe so that the separate know? Yeah, I'm trying to meet with the principals.
Okay, the next public comment I have would be from Karen Harris.
You couldn't hear anything that was just said, so I don't know. We can't hear anything that's being said because there's a lot of side conversations, so I know what was just said. I don't think anyone in the audience who's at least a hearing member heard what was said.
Ms. April expressed concern that she was unaware of the meetings that were being held.
No, so what I was saying was, she mentioned all these meetings, but that's not what I hear from staff members. So there's concern that if there's this good communication going on, then why is that the case? Because I think Dr. Lane spoke at the last meeting on the 25th about that communication. So it's kind of conflicting to what was presented to us at the beginning to what we hear, from the staff.
So basically what I was getting at was, I was asking her really, is there documentation that there's communication going on?
Okay.
That's what you all would like to see, the documentation and.
Correct.
That
Open
these
communication
communications have
with
been
the
happening.
district and the school leaders, yes.
Okay, Karen Harris.
Hi, my name's Karen Harris. I'm a parent of a recent LSBI graduate. Why am I here today? Because I have fought for years with the LDOE, SSE, to do right by LSD, LSBI, and LSAC. No, my child is no longer here, but it's not about my child. It's about the children that are here now and the children that will be here in the future. We have some amazing people that did a review for the LDOE. It's the March 2018 review. Believe all of you have gotten a copy of it. If not, you should have. And we, the parents, want to see these recommendations implemented. The state paid $150,000 for this review, and not one thing that was recommended has been placed. The staff of our schools have gone above and beyond any other school. They choose to continue their educational training. They become specifically certified and trained in their chosen educational fields: Braille, ASL, orientation, mobility, for everyday home living skills that you, I, the sighted and hearing world take for granted. Our children, staff, and teachers are unique and special, as should be the superintendent of the SSD. I'm here to ask you to help me right the injustices that are happening with our children, their educators. I really need more than 3 minutes, but I'm just going to ask you to bear with me. I'll condense it, then I'll email it to you. I need you to listen with an open mind and a humble heart to the parents and the staff. Let us share our experiences and our desires for these recommendations. You've all heard that the parents don't want to be involved. False. We parents at the blind and the deaf school held our own parent meetings off campus. We live streamed them. SSD found out, said they needed to be in control, but didn't need to be doing that. We also worked diligently to make a joint parent-teacher organization. I drew up all the paperwork. I filed it. Oh no, we gotta have control of that. You parents can't do that. You want parents on advisory boards? There's no advisory boards. You want parents to participate? You need to understand the majority of the parents live an hour to 6 hours away. These meetings are always held here. During the week, they have to work. There's a real world out there that these parents have to continue living with. I volunteer to work as a parent liaison, to take 3-4 days of my month every month and to travel where these parents are and hold meetings. Give them the information the teachers and SSD want them to have. Bring back what the parents want. Oh no one ever wanted to hear about that again. So here we are again. We're looking for another superintendent. Well,
Karen, I'm gonna ask you to politely ask you to wrap it up.
okay. So this is what I'm going to ask you to listen. We still don't have a qualified superintendent. Please do not consider a financial officer for an educational position. And in my understanding, there is a misplacement of millions of LDOE dollars. I wouldn't even want her over here for a financial job. Nothing personal, but our children, our staff, deserve for you to protect, educate, and take care of. Everybody in this school knows my name, my number. I'm available, and I will email this to each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I just want to let everyone know, we had a great meeting yesterday with Dr. Lane and Melanie, a couple of us on the board, and we were able to make a good bit of headway. So you have to understand this is a new board, and I've talked to Karen as well. very diverse background of educational leaders, and we are working very hard to move forward. You do have to give us some time, and you do have to trust us. We want to be very transparent. We want you to participate in the decisions that we're making. This is not the superintendent search of the past. It's the superintendent search with the new board that was appointed by the governor, and he valued in us our diverse backgrounds in education. And we pledge to you that we are going to do our jobs as a team to move the district forward. We kind of see where we have fallen short. And really, it's by no means of the people who are here today presently, but we are going to have to right some wrongs from the past, and we're going to make sure that happens.
Thank you. I have great faith in y'all. I'm hoping for miracles.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad you have faith in us. We need that. We need to be believed in.
So, Madam President, if there are no other public comments, we still have the motion on the floor, we need to finalize.
Did you turn that in?
I didn't hear him.
I said if there are no more public comments, we need to finalize the motion, either we vote it up or down.
Everybody in favor?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the motion? What is the motion?
The original motion on the floor was that within the next 30 days, the Personnel Subcommittee will develop a rubric with goals and outcomes and timelines for the evaluation of the performance of the acting superintendent to be shared with the full board and stakeholders.
Okay.
And it's been seconded by Ronnie Weiss.
Any opposition?
An amendment to add a deaf individual on the personnel
So
committee.
that's not an amendment to this motion, we gotta,
Add that to the end?
well, we gotta finish this motion, and then that would be a separate
But
motion.
it pertains to the personnel committee.
Sure, I understand, but so if there are no oppositions to this motion, then we need to pass this motion. If there is a motion to add, another individual to the personnel subcommittee, that would be a separate motion, and we can do that. Are we in agreement with the first motion?
Yes, was there any opposition here? I did not see any,
Okay.
so it
Then
passes.
that passes, so if now, so if you'd like to make a motion that that person be added to the personnel committee, we may have to call Leslie, look at the bylaws, and I'm not sure what the bylaws say exactly with respect to the personnel subcommittee, how many members, or if they may not mention the number of members.
It doesn't.
You don't need a motion for this to be done. So you can just add a deaf person.
Okay, so Leslie informed me that, Sherry, we do not need a motion, that as the president, I can just appoint somebody to represent the deaf population. So I'm gonna ask for any volunteers. Would anybody like to, on the board, volunteer to the position that you're on the personnel committee representing the deaf? Kenny?
Yes.
Okay, so we will appoint Kenny.
Are you asking the public to volunteer?
No, it's anybody on the board.
So only, open to only board members?
Right. It's open to only board members.
Okay. I just needed to be clear on that.
Okay, so Kenny Davis volunteered to represent the deaf,
And he's accepted.
and yes, he has.
And he says thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny.
Okay, we're gonna move on to adjournment. Okay, we're adjourned.
Do you need to move to adjourn or have a break?
It has to be on topic, so the cards were filled out after the topic had come and passed. Yes, sir.
I think the problem is the public wasn't told it had to be on topic, and we're not given the opportunity to fill out a part and speak after the fact. So I think you still have to give them the opportunity to speak. Because several people filled out parts after topics were already discussed, and we're not told that fact.
Then you could only make a comment about the subject. Things have changed in the last 50 years.
So, okay, guys, when you speak at a public meeting, the topic has to be on the agenda item. I mean, I have something on here that just says oversight of SSD, that's not an agenda item. So, I mean, it's up to the board if they want to hear this. If y'all want to hear this, y'all can do so, but it's not on the agenda. There's just not, this is like, I mean, Bessie doesn't do this, I'm not aware of anybody just says, come on up here and speak about whatever you want. We can't come up here and talk about tacos all day. That's not on the agenda. The other person waved here. This was heard, that was heard, what else?
I humbly interrupt you to let you know that the parents do not know the procedures and policies. You failed
Okay,
to
so
tell
she
us
discussed
in the
this at the
beginning
beginning of the meeting.
No.
No, she did. She did. She
You
did.
failed to
You didn't
instruct
listen.
the public on the procedure. You do need to, at this point, you made an error. Let us speak and correct the fact that you did not tell us we had to fill the cards out in advance and be on topic.
Karen, I'm gonna ask when you talk to the board, it would be the same
I
that,
will.
that I speak to you, that we do it politely, because it really
But I'm
conditions.
asking,
I hear you. I do hear you.
Understand. They
Right,
don't know
I do
the
hear
procedure.
you.
Y'all
But
made an error.
I do hear
Politely
you.
fix it.
But I'm just gonna ask from here forward that we speak to each other politely, because the environment
I
that you have
understand.
set,
And
it's not
I
a
get
good
a little
one.
passionate, but.
It's
you
okay
have
to be
these people that
compassionate.
Sat here and they didn't know the procedure. You can't penalize people for not knowing and for your failure to inform. Please allow the other parents to speak.
Miss Karen, I think she did inform and did have to speak to the agenda item.
And we did put it on the,
On the agenda.
yeah, number one, the public comment policy.
It
We-
just didn't say when to do it.
I'm speaking as an individual who does want to hear after adjournment. I don't know if it's okay with the superintendent, but after adjournment, I'm happy to stay and listen. But the procedure is you speak to a specific agenda item, and she did make us aware, just to kind of de-escalate things a little bit. But there's quite a few board members, if you'd like to talk, we would. But any meeting you go to, you have to speak to the agenda. And I don't know who's a parliamentarian, but if there is something that you, as a parent, would like to put on the board agenda, can you tell them how to proceed next time with doing something like that?
Okay, so we've been advised that Tiffany Sanders, we're gonna let them speak and we're gonna.
We have been advised that we're gonna let everybody speak, and I just wanna remind y'all that we're all human beings in this room, and that we are all here for the same reason. When you escalate something that we cannot fix immediately, and you create an environment of hostility and coerce amongst the people that are in this room, you do no good for any of the schools or any of the people that are in this room. So I definitely respect all of you. I'm so glad that all of you are here. I'm looking forward to working with you, but I am a talker and I like to talk things out. I don't like to be hollered at, which I know that is how most people are. As being an educational leader for the last 20 years, that's how I run my school and my facility. I don't belittle people, so I would expect that our population that is here today treats everybody with respect. We really do not move forward if we operate in an environment of hostility. Tiffany Sanders.
Hello, how are y'all today? I'm a parent of the LSD elementary, and he's currently in 5th grade.
Has he been here the whole time?
Yes, ma'am, since pre-K. And I'm a parent that I've been here to where we had so many different issues that was never able to be discussed with anyone. Not even, I'm not gonna just say that the superintendent is the problem. It don't just start with superintendents inside this school. Okay, it starts with staffs, it starts with principals, it starts with teachers, it starts with aides. It's all kind of different things that you have to learn, that the communication process starts from the bottom. It don't start from the top. So if the bottom is not telling the top what the problem is, then therefore a lot of issues are being brushed up under the rug. Okay? Parents as myself who don't have a voice because I don't know when meetings are coming or occurring because no one's informing me of it, which has a child that has behavior issues in the school, but it's only been a reprimand on his part and not a problem. The solution is not being solved. Okay? So me as a parent, I done went above and beyond trying to reach out to superintendents before Ms. Bernier and so on and so forth, Gary, and never had a response. So it's not just the superintendent that I'm just totally attack today, because it starts with further than just the superintendent. Just as a parent of being here and knowing that I have to deal with certain different issues that's not being addressed. You know, when we could start from any little small things in a classroom that need adjustments, you know, and a lot of things are not being done. I have a child which is in 5th grade now, which the teacher last year told me that he's on the kindergarten level. It's just impossible for you to tell a parent that your child is on the kindergarten level, but instead of being pushed to the next grade. So we have so many other problems that we're not addressing, but we're making it a big issue out of what the superintendent is doing. But if superintendent is getting reports from teachers and any other staff that these problems are not occurring, then how would the superintendent know? They're only going by what is written. So I'm just a parent. I'm here to stand firm on this meeting today to let y'all know that it's way far beyond just superintendents. Superintendents are just a mild case of, you know, only getting reports on the back end versus being firsthand in these classrooms. Now, I'm not expecting for them to be first hands in the classrooms, but I am expecting for them to be first hands on top of their principals, their leaders, their staffs, their teachers, and everything, and even the aides that's inside of the classrooms.
Okay, Tiffany, I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up.
Have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the next name is Lamiki Young. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Well, basically, basically what I wanted to know was if the board is researching policy and procedures on how things should run. What is the end goal once y'all have, and what's the time frame of how long it's gonna take y'all to research and understand this policy? And then once y'all do What's gonna happen after that? Well, what's the time frame? Because my initial question would be, if y'all board members have attempted already to start, then that means each of you already have taken the 16 hours of initial training that you're supposed to have prior to becoming a board member.
So we just put that on the agenda today.
I understand that, I heard that y'all putting it on, and that's something that's gonna be going on. But the point is to have been count one. Y'all had to have had the 16 hours of training prior to, not after the fact. Because after the fact, y'all have training that y'all supposed to have after. So I'm saying, y'all, my question is, y'all start the research and understand what needs to happen. What will be the time frame and what is gonna happen after that?
We can probably update you at the November meeting on that, as we only put that on the agenda today.
We do the vote in November. Okay.
Okay, that was the last public comment.
We have one more,
What's your name?
Barbara Gresham, and it was on the superintendent's report. I had some questions about it.
Come on up, Barbara.
My name is Barbara Gresham. I have a child that I'm raising that's at LSBI. She did go to public school first, pre-K, well, it was all pre-K, and then I moved her here. A lot of questions were asked about the staff that we have at LSBI. Excuse me. That it seems like the proportions would put it 2 children to 1 teacher. Of course, the numbers for this year are much lower than they were, but having a child that has a lot more disabilities than just being blind, a lot of cognitive issues, a lot of motor skills, a lot of other things going on. Unless you have a child like that, I don't think you can really appreciate small classrooms. When I acquired Destiny through foster care, we were given no hope of her breathing, potty training, anything. In public school, she sat in a corner and colored all day. She was happy. She's a happy child. When we came here, the learning started. Took her 3 years to learn her alphabet, but she knows it. I get emotional because she's a miracle child.
Thank you.
I credit that to this school and all of the teachers' input. It's more than just the teachers, there's staff of therapists, the O&M teacher, the art teacher, there's so many more involved in what they're calling teachers, which they're way more than teachers. The idea of cutting the staff when we have posted for more teachers and more people to help these children, to me is ridiculous. I just can't see, and there's several teachers at the school now that have already been informed they're being moved to the SSD. So the 22 here will go down.
So we spoke to that yesterday, and I think at this time nobody is being moved until all the other agenda items get discussed and move forward. So what you have had, you will continue to have at this time. Right.
That's a big red flag.
Well, you
For
have,
parents, it
right,
is.
you just have to review. I mean, as a principal, as a leader, you have to review what you currently have. It can't be based on what is the past or what is the future. You have to review what you currently have. It could mean more. You know, it just depends on what the review would bring up.
Well, and it'll take getting personally involved in both schools to see what the needs are. The kids that are there are some that are deaf, which is like just being a language shortage, as you know, from what I see. They're very intelligent, very smart. Once they learn the language, it's no different than having a Spanish child that speaks only Spanish in class until they learn English. With the blind, there's a lot that very, very intelligent. Unfortunately, my child needs that extra, a lot extra. I think the majority of students here need a lot extra. With her going through the public school system, I did see firsthand support systems are in the school. They taught her or tried to teach Braille, the O&M. They do have some deaf students that are being taught the ASL. The kids that only have the one disability, blind or deaf, they are getting education, a good education in public school. Children like mine don't have any other option. This is the only place for her.
I just wanted to add to what Chris was saying, that yesterday afternoon we met with the principals of the school and the superintendent. And I think there's a tremendous amount of miscommunication, misinformation, and a tremendous amount of fear going around right now. And I just want you parents to be assured that we've got your back. We've got the principal's back. We support what you're saying. Nobody's looking at cutting and removing and doing anything detrimental to the children. The children in these schools is our A1 priority. So I hear you. I understand there's a lot of fear. I understand there's been a lot of bad decisions that have been made, but I assure you, we're working very closely with the superintendent and with the principals of the school to make the best decisions possible for the children. And we support you. We appreciate what you're going through, and we're doing the best that we know how to give your children the best education that they possibly can.
Thank you, Edward. Okay, with that, it looks like I have all the public comment, and we are going to adjourn.